February 2021 didn't just bring a cold snap to Texas, it exposed a fragile system most people never question until it fails. Temperatures plunged to levels not seen in decades. Infrastructure cracked under pressure, and millions of homes were suddenly without heat, power, or even running water. Within days, modern comfort collapsed into something far more primitive. Families layered blankets like armor. Others made desperate choices that turned fatal. And in the middle of that chaos, a different kind of story began spreading, not through official channels, but through the internet. Claims started circulating that you could generate heat using nothing more than aluminum foil, salt, and water. No fuel, no electricity, just chemistry. Die. It sounded like something pulled from a survival manual hidden from the public. It's a kind of trick that feels too powerful to be widely known. And that's exactly why it spread so quickly. Today we're going to examine that claim from the ground up, not as a myth to dismiss, but as a piece of real science wrapped in misunderstanding. Because behind the viral headlines lies something far more valuable than a quick fix. There's history, physics, and a survival lesson that actually holds up when everything else fails. Aluminum wasn't always ordinary, and that matters more than you think. To understand why this idea even exists, you have to go back to a time when aluminum wasn't lining kitchen drawers. In the mid-19th century, it was one of the most valuable materials on Earth. More expensive than gold, not because it was rare, but because it was locked inside rock so tightly that extracting it required processes humanity hadn't yet mastered. When chemists first managed to isolate small amounts, the world reacted accordingly. It wasn't treated as a utility, it was displayed as a marvel. Royalty prized it, industrialists chased it. Entire exhibitions were built around showcasing it. That changed almost overnight in 1886, when two young scientists working independently discovered a method to extract aluminum using electricity. The process broke the barrier that had made the metal so expensive. Prices collapsed, production surged, and within decades, aluminum transformed from a luxury into a disposable material. But something critical stayed hidden in that transition. Extracting aluminum requires enormous amounts of energy. Every sheet of foil represents a significant electrical investment stored at the atomic level during its production. That energy doesn't disappear, it remains locked inside the metal, waiting for the right conditions to be released. If aluminum holds so much stored energy, why doesn't it react constantly? Why doesn't it break down the moment it touches water or air? The answer is a microscopic shield. The instant aluminum is exposed to oxygen, it forms an ultra-thin oxide layer on its surface. This layer is incredibly stable and seals the reactive metal beneath it. It's so effective that it prevents further reactions almost completely, even in harsh environments. More importantly, this barrier repairs itself instantly. Scratch it, and it reforms. Damage it, and it rebuilds. This self-healing property is what allows aluminum to sit safely in kitchens, wrap food, and endure high temperatures without breaking down. For most of human history, that oxide layer kept the energy inside aluminum completely inaccessible. The metal remained stable, predictable, and safe. But the key to unlocking that stored energy lies in disrupting that protective layer. Salt water doesn't just corrode, it unlocks something deeper. When aluminum foil is placed in salt water, something subtle but important begins to happen. The chloride ions in the salt attack weak points in the oxide layer, slowly penetrating the barrier. Once the underlying metal is exposed, a reaction begins. Aluminum starts pulling oxygen from water molecules, releasing hydrogen gas, and generating heat in the process. This isn't speculation, it's well-documented chemistry. The bubbling seen in demonstrations is hydrogen gas escaping as the reaction progresses, and the temperature rise is measurable. This is where the viral claim finds its footing. The reaction is real. The heat is real. Under the right conditions, you can absolutely produce warmth using aluminum, salt, and water. But this is where the story starts to separate into fact and fiction. Energy doesn't appear out of nowhere, and that changes everything. The idea of free heat collapses the moment you apply basic thermodynamics. The energy released in this reaction isn't being created, it's being recovered. And only partially. The aluminum is consumed during the process, converting into a different compound. Once it's gone, the reaction stops. There's no cycle, no regeneration, no sustained output without continually adding more material. Worse still, the energy you recover is only a fraction of what was used to produce the aluminum in the first place. Industrial smelting is highly inefficient from an energy recovery standpoint, so that means using aluminum as a heat source is not just impractical, it's economically irrational. This is why the concept never developed into a real-world heating solution. It's not because it's hidden or suppressed, but because it simply doesn't compete with existing energy systems. The real danger isn't the chemistry, it's the environment you create. Where things become serious is in the byproducts of the reaction. Hydrogen gas is not just flammable, it's extremely volatile, ignites with minimal energy, and burns across a wide concentration range. In a controlled laboratory setting, this is manageable. In a closed indoor space, it becomes a serious hazard. Hydrogen accumulates near ceilings, often unnoticed, and a single spark is enough to trigger an explosion. There have been real incidents where improvised chemical heating setups led to fires or worse. The reaction itself isn't the problem, it's the lack of control, ventilation, and understanding that turns it dangerous. And when people attempt to accelerate the process using stronger chemicals, the risks multiply. Caustic substances introduce a completely different level of hazard, capable of causing severe chemical burns and structural damage if mishandled. This is where survival knowledge separates itself from desperation. Understanding what not to do is often more important than knowing what's possible. There is a way aluminum can help you survive the cold, and it's not chemical. Here's where the story takes a turn that actually matters in real life. Aluminum can help you conserve heat effectively, but not through reactions, through reflection. In many homes, especially older ones, heat loss is a constant problem. Radiators and heaters don't just warm the air, they emit energy in all directions, including into walls. If those walls are poorly insulated, a significant portion of that heat escapes outside. This is where aluminum foil becomes valuable. By placing a reflective surface behind a heat source, you redirect that escaping energy back into the room. It's a simple principle rooted in physics, not chemistry. A basic setup using foil and a backing material can noticeably improve heat retention. The effect isn't dramatic in isolation, but over time, it reduces energy waste in a measurable way. And unlike the chemical approach, it carries no risk. This method has been studied and tested. It works because it aligns with how heat actually behaves, rather than trying to force a reaction that was never designed for sustained use. What history teaches about survival is rarely about shortcuts. The story of aluminum, from royal treasure to everyday object, mirrors a larger pattern in human behavior. We often overlook the true value of what we have, and at the same time, we're drawn to ideas that promise effortless solutions. The viral heat claim taps into something deeper than curiosity. It speaks to the desire for independence, especially in moments when systems fail. But history shows that survival has never been about finding hidden tricks. It's about understanding reality clearly enough to make the right decisions under pressure. When the Texas grid failed, the difference between survival and tragedy often came down to preparation and knowledge. Not speculation, not experimentation, but grounded, practical understanding of how to stay warm safely. The aluminum reaction is fascinating. It's a legitimate piece of chemistry with real-world applications in controlled environments. But it's not a survival solution for the average household, okay? And treating it as one introduces risks that far outweigh its benefits. The real takeaway you can use starting tonight. If there's one thing worth carrying forward from this entire discussion, it's this. Efficiency beats improvisation in a crisis. You don't need to generate more heat if you can prevent losing the heat you already have. Simple adjustments, like improving insulation, reducing drafts, and reflecting heat back into living spaces, are far more effective than experimental methods. They require no risk, no special tools, and no guesswork. And this is the kind of knowledge that holds up when conditions deteriorate. It's not dramatic, it doesn't go viral, but it works consistently, and that's what matters. If this breakdown gave you something valuable, something you can actually use when it counts, then you already understand what this channel is about. It's not myths, not shortcuts, but real knowledge pulled from history and tested against reality. Subscribe for more deep dives like this, and share this with someone who takes preparedness seriously. Because when systems fail, information becomes your most reliable tool. Stay sharp, stay informed, and keep learning from the past, because that's where the best survival strategies are still waiting.